Welcome to RawPodcast. My name is Scott Harrigan, and today I have the pleasure of having Kelly Mann. Kelly, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
I'm good, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Man, no problem.
Good reason to wash my hair and get out of bed. Yeah.
Was it? Yeah. What day is it today? Anyway, I don't even know. Perfect. So, for those of you who may not know Kelly, don't know how, but he's been around a long time in amateur sports and part of the BC Games for many, 27 years?
26 years, yeah.
Wow.
I started when I was 5. So
that's not bad, eh?
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, not a lot of 5-year-olds start something like that. That's
genius.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
26 years, and I was fortunate enough to get hired by Roger Skillings, who was my boss, and then when Roger left to create what now we know as Picey, I filled his big shoes.
You did that too, yeah?
I was there for about 16, 17 years doing that job.
Wow, okay. And then on top of all of that, you weren't busy enough. You decided to co-found Kids Sport Victoria. Is that correct?
That's right, yeah, with Allison Noble and Patty Hunter back in I guess it was probably in the fall of 1999, and the BC Summer Games were in Victoria that year 2000, my first year as a CEO, and we kind of put our heads together and said, maybe we can create this legacy that is lasting on the heels of the games. Kids Sport was an entity out of BC. They were trying to do it across the province out of Vancouver, and of course they were having mediocre success, and so
it was a chapter before, but just not here.
That's right. Yeah. There were a few chapters around the province, and they were trying to get them fired up and doing everything out of Vancouver and not understanding the marketplace, et cetera, et cetera. So the three of us did it, and I remember back in those days, which is now 21 years ago.
Yeah.
We would give away $40 to a family to help their kid play hockey, which was a drop in the bucket. Now we were after 10 years when I stepped down as chair, they were the second largest in the country.
Yeah.
Behind Calgary. So, kudos to, Jill Shaw and the folks that are doing. They're doing really, really well. And
I remember
proud of that.
I remember when I first started ISN, I was approached by Own the Podium.
Yeah.
They were just new on scene, and I thought, what a great kind of a concept. But as they evolved, it's not so much kind of what the mandate is when they first started type thing. It's all about the medal now. It's like, we want this, and you got to perform to get that. Whereas when they first started, Kelly, it was taking an athlete who was injured in their chosen sport, like it was that football player, Jesse Lumsden.
Yeah.
He got hurt in Hamilton, and they said, okay, I think you make a great bobsled. We're going to throw money into that. I thought it was great to get athletes at an elite level back into an elite sport again. So I kind of thought that, but I'm not sure it's that.
Well, On the Podium was an initiative that was spawned by having the Olympic Games and Paralympic Games in Vancouver in 2010. So it was about basically hothousing athletes and investing, and getting athletes ready for competition.
Yeah.
And that still continues.
It does, but they were taking other athletes that like Claire Hughes and stuff.
Yeah.
What an athlete she is.
That's the RBC training ground too, whereas they bring those athletes together. That RBC training ground it still exists. And it's thriving. Yeah. And Kurt Innes was or is still responsible for that in Victoria. Through the Canadian Sports Centre Pacific. And so again, they'll find athletes, they bring athletes out, they run them through a series of tests. So how fast can you run a 40? How many burpees can you do?
Right.
Testing your whole physical being.
Which is really what Picey started all about, correct?
Well, Picey again was I think trying to bring together the collective and creating, for lack of a better word, a co-op. And having everybody under
was that
one
really?
roof.
Oh, I thought it was
so having national teams there and having the sports science there, and then Canadian Sports Centre Pacific evolved, and they're housed there, and then Picey itself, of course, has all the gym space, but Canadian Sports Centre Pacific is really the author of those athletes' successes through their various partnerships.
But from what I remember of Pisces at the time, and it was Andrea something.
Andrea Carey, yeah.
Andrea Carey. Yeah. It was more. It was more the testing and physical, what you could push a person to.
Yeah, well, that was all incorporated into everything they did. And as I say, the RBC training ground has kind of taken that over. And
did Pisces get along with UVic? They never seem to work together as far as athletics.
That I don't know. I mean, they've got their national training centers there. UVic has their collegiate side of things there, university side of things.
I kind of always feel bad for Pac West and Canada West because they always they don't get. There's some wicked athletes there, and they just, it seems to be the ugly stepchild to the bigger sports at collegiate level.
Well, and I think that goes back, something we were talking about off camera about, the coverage of amateur sport.
I want to talk about
in
that.
Greater Victoria, and, I can recall from my many years ago where, media outlets had sport departments.
Yeah, absolutely.
And those don't exist anymore.
No.
And I think that's quite a shame because a young athlete, a 5-10-year-old kid who sees, a UVic basketball athlete, performing and speaking to camera, and then that kid maybe plays basketball herself.
Yeah.
And then, that's something that she can go after and emulate and say, I want to be a university athlete rather than, maybe going to a game.
I honestly, in my 13 years of doing ISN, Kelly, I can't tell. It's as hard as it is doing, especially I do it for free, and I only say that because it's a passion of mine, right? And until that passion goes over and done, then that ISN will be done. But to see the kids going, because when you and I were younger, our name would be in the paper, and we'd hang it on the fridge, and whatever, and then the other kids would get it at school or something like that. But the kids that today are if it's online or something like that is their newspaper, and I can't begin to tell you how kind of chuffed they are, that they're on there, and I don't know why it's never kind of. I don't know why it's not covered more at a lower level, to encourage them.
Yeah, well, I think radio and television stations can tell you what they want to tell you. At the end of the day, they have to pay the bills.
It is.
And,
it's money.
I was at the Greater Victoria Sports Hall of Fame dinner when was that, October. And I said to a few people that, my concern is that, our local newspaper, and God love Clem Deanshaw, he's the guy that's doing it.
He's the guy,
all by himself.
Yeah.
But there's more.
Well, he had the other guy. Yeah. No, I agree.
Now it's Cleve, and he's busting his hump to get the stories out there, and God love him for that. But when there's more column inches dedicated in a Victoria newspaper to obituaries than there are on amateur sport, that's one thing. And then you click on the TV, and they'll talk about the weather for 8 minutes, but they won't tell you about, the high school track athlete or the figure skating star. That to me is a little bit disappointing because that's the fabric of our community.
But why do you think that is? Because I have my own opinion.
Well, I just think it's got to start from the top. If there's an interest, like anything else, it's like you had an interest in doing this. You had a passion for doing this.
Passion.
So you made it happen.
Yes.
So maybe it's the editor. Maybe it's the station
It's exactly that. It's exactly. So for me, just dumb ex-goalie, City Victoria, I'm not going to die. What do you, I was told one time by somebody at Times Columns that I'm taking the piss out of journalism. I said, you don't need my help, buddy. I think it's because they have to go through two editors, this, that, to put that. I think it's a lot to do with it's a union. You can't send it in because it's a union job.
That's possible, yeah.
Right? That's what I firmly believe. I don't think it's the fault of the person. He just happens to be the face of that sports department. I don't think it's him specifically. I think he's just not allowed.
Yeah. Well, several years ago, I kind of nagged at them with Shaw when Shaw had their cable.
Did you work there?
No.
Okay.
No. I volunteered. I was an exec. Well, they called me a producer, content producer.
That's where we first met.
I think so.
Yeah.
And I, Kevin Chirac cut his teeth on that.
That's right.
Came down from Dawson Creek, cut his teeth with Shaw.
I remember when we met.
And we did, we called it, I don't remember the name of it, but we went behind the scoreboard. So we didn't tell you that.
Yeah, Kenny Himes.
Yeah.
There's a character, right?
We didn't tell you that Team A beat Team B 6-5. we told you the story behind that. We told you about the kids who were playing or the coach that was developing these kids or. And the content was an arm's length. And it was great. And unhappily, you know, Shaw was doing some business readjustments, and they've since, of course, packed it in down at Save-On Food Center there, where they don't
It's
have
a shame.
studio. But again, I think it all comes down to nickels and dimes. And
well, I remember. Do you remember when we first met? Like, and talking about this exact. Here it is. How many years later?
Exactly.
And here we are talking about the same thing again.
Yeah.
That it could have happened, but I think it. I remember leaving there, hoping, because I'd been doing it a while before I met you.
Yeah, you had print. Yeah, you had online.
I had a magazine at that point. Yeah. Well, there's another one. I had to deal with the TC to have them in inserts.
Oh.
And I had 40,000 magazines delivered to Times Colonist because they were going to insert them, and they were left out in the rain and never got put in because we changed our mind. And I'm like, oh, you bastards. But I naively went around to every radio station. Yeah. I went around to every news outlet, introduced myself, thinking I would just get welcome with open arms. Mm-hmm. And that's awesome. That this is good. So whatever. I don't think I was a threat to him. I still don't think I'm a threat. However, I stopped caring. Well, to be honest, I stopped giving a shit what they did.
Well, I think a threat would be if they had if they had existing content and existing staff doing what you're proposing to do. So if you used either of the television stations in town, they don't have that going on right now. They don't have a sport reporter. They have a reporter that may cover a sports story. But I would argue at a very high altitude. They don't drill down. They don't ask the questions.
No.
So that, if anything, you're supplementing what they're doing. But I think it goes back to, you got to be territorial. You got to protect your staff, and what does that look like, and how do we do that? So,
but it's actually not that hard.
Well, but if they don't open the door for you, you can't go in.
Oh no! I mean, I stopped. I don't. I lost interest in anything to do with I still get calls, mind you, from them. Hey, what's going on? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just not interested because I've gone down that road and I'm not beating that drum. No. But as far as doing, and I'm not trying to say that the industry is anybody can do it and stuff like that. You have to have a passion.
Well, of course,
and it can't be about money. It can't. It just can't. So. And I find, and I grew up just outside of Toronto, Kelly. Uh-huh. And, I mean, if you look predominantly at a lot of athletes and you look at the NHL and any sport, a lot of those athletes that make it pro and played, went to the Olympics and done well, predominantly come from a province like Ontario because of the pure size of it.
Sure, well, yeah.
But I was shocked coming to Victoria and the elite athletes that we have here. I went, wow, how is this not being discussed?
Well, we've created an incubator. And
how so? Explain that.
Well, I think if you go back to what the BC Games were when they were created,
I love the BC Games.
40 plus years ago.
Okay? Love the BC Games.
So Premier Bill Bennett at the time brought using sport as a catalyst to meet your neighbor. So it brought British Columbia together, and they had them
100%
province, right? So, but those athletes you had a 13-year-old track athlete, and you had a 25-year-old diver, and you had a 30-year-old golfer. So it was about a celebration of sport rather than having an opportunity for development. So
Team BC.
So that is something else again. So one of my successes, having been CEO and building on the plans of others, and it certainly wasn't just me; it was everybody. But we moved.
You were the catalyst.
We moved the games from a recreational to a developmental model. So that athlete that is coming to a BC Games is the best he in their zone. And let's just use baseball, my favorite sport. So they bring all the baseball players together from 8 zones, the best kids from the Prince George area, the best kids from the island, the Lower Mainland, da-da-da. So there's 8 of them. And then Baseball BC watches those kids. And so in 3 or 4 years, when they're at a provincial age level, they play into those teams, and they play into those teams, and they take the best of those 8 zones, and they move them forward, and they keep moving them forward. So we see that continuum of development not just in the athlete, but also in the coach, and then of course the officials, because we have them at
People forget about the officials, actually.
100%. Yeah.
People, that if they don't even think about it, doesn't even register.
Well, if they're doing a good job, you shouldn't even see
No,
them.
but I mean, you have to, in order to pull something off like the BC Games, you have to have officials.
Oh yeah, a couple of hundred of them at least.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And the volunteers and everything else.
Yeah, well, that's
but we'll get into that.
That's
but
a whole different
yeah,
story, right?
So
this continuum of development is on and on and on. And then we mentioned earlier about the Canadian Sports Centre Pacific and the work they're doing out there. So they've got sports science, they've got national teams training here, they've got coaches, they've got investments by government, which is critical. So the federal and provincial government, we've got Own the Podium, we've got a number of things. We've got the Commonwealth Legacy, John McMillan's 94 Forward, that is investing in sport. So it's developing these athletes. So you're right. Hugh McDonald, he used to run.
I remember how is he still with us?
Yeah,
he's a great guy.
He's retired, but Hugh McDonald said
he was out at Commonwealth, his office, the pool.
That's right. Yeah. So
yeah.
Keith Wells now it's called the Greater Victoria Sport Tourism Commission.
Was Keith the Pisey guy?
No, Keith was at Czech years ago, and then
right. Yeah.
Kind of an entrepreneur, and so took this job, and he and I are working on a project together.
Okay,
maybe we'll talk about that.
100%.
But he said he wanted the handle of Victoria where champions are made.
I remember that,
and I agree 100% to that that kind of theory, because it's not just whether it's we're talking specifically about sport and athletics and stuff. But it could be the high tech industry. It could be any number of things where a lot of great stuff happens here. And I use the word incubator, and again, we need to celebrate that more. And I had a board chair many years ago, and this goes back to my BC Games work, where Wendy Ladner-Beaudry said we've got to tell the story, because if we don't, who's going to come and knock on our door? So
great idea.
We made it our mission was to talk about these. So when a BC Games alum went to a Team BC to go compete at Canada Games, we broadcast that. When they were on an Olympic team, we broadcast that. The first gold medal won by a Canadian on Canadian soil, because we didn't win gold in Montreal, nor did we win one in Calgary.
Yep.
Was one in Vancouver, was a BC Games alum, and that was Mael Ricker.
Yeah.
So very proud moment for all of us in our office. Not that we had nothing to do with her competition. We gave her an opportunity, but it was all about her. But she had a pathway, and we were part of that performance pathway, and BC Games still is.
You know what I found with BC Games today, or in the previous years, is that you only have one media outlet that covers it. The Vic News or whatever, they have carte blanche over it?
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
We had
that's what I was told.
Yeah, no, we had Global BC and we had Black Press.
Black Press. Sorry.
And they still do.
Yeah.
And but no, they were just.
Was it because they signed the deal? It
made sense on both sides of the fence to have those relationships. Yeah. But no, they were never exclusive contracts.
See, I was under the impression they were. When I got I can't even remember who it was now. They said, "Oh no, you'll have to get all that content and press releases, whether they allow it or not."
No, we would send if we sent a release out, everybody got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was the deal with Black Press then, that they covered it first, or they got it out first?
Well, they had people on the ground. It kind of forced them to be interested, if you will.
Right. But there was nothing monetary that went into the coffers of BC.
We got exposure.
Yeah.
And they got eyes on their paper.
Right. Okay.
That's what they wanted for their advertisers. Yeah. So no, they were both VIK deals.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just the part of the most rewarding thing over the years that I get to do is see our athletes, our amateur athletes, excel at that stage. It's really cool. Commonwealth Games is another, but I mean, when there's a difference between, I think it's the unity, Kelly. I don't know. I've never been able to itch that scratch, but I think it's the unity where, you can live in Victoria, you can live here, you can live there, but when you're competing for your province, it doesn't it doesn't matter where you live. Yeah. It's Team BC. These kids get right into it.
Oh yeah,
more than winning a championship or a VIJHL or something.
Yeah. Well, I was fortunate to be on a couple of Team BCs. First in 1995, we were in Grand Prairie. I was a mission staff member. For a week, and I was with the squash players. And I didn't know those kids when we got into it, but by the end of it, I got quite emotional when it was time to say goodbye.
How
to
do you
those kids,
not?
because I saw them grow, I saw them compete, I saw them become unified, to your point.
Yeah.
And then, of course, a couple of them were fortunate enough to go home with some hardware. So
it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, I was like, I'm not their dad, but I felt like a proud parent.
Funny you say that, because who's that tennis player that won the U.S. Open a couple of Bietsky, or what was her name? The young lady. She won the U.S. Open. I remember covering her in tennis for years. And it would get no views on my site. It would get nothing. And then all of a sudden she started winning, and then she's going to Wimbledon, and then all of a sudden she wins the U.S. Open. And it was like, that's my daughter. In a weird, in a stupid, weird way. It was like, I've been covering this kid since she was just a teenager.
Yep.
And now I get to share this with her. But every other news thing was like, they're on it right away. And I'm like, you bastards, like, where were you 8 years ago?
Well, that's it. What I mean?
It was a weird feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
But now we got another girl, Misha Zandy Hart.
Yeah, Micah.
Is it Micah?
Yeah.
So she's.
Well, it's nice to see a BC hockey player on a national team, particularly on the women's side. I don't think we've had that for ages and ages.
I thought
there you go. She's a Team BC athlete,
total Team BC athlete, and the other part of that is that. When I got the release from Hockey Canada, and actually next week, this Saturday, we're doing we have a rep from the Canadian or the Women's Hockey League here in town.
Okay.
When I looked up her bio, I had to write something, so I asked Hockey Canada if I could do this bio thing, whatever. And I'm thinking, I never really heard of this young lady before, and I thought she was like 16. Then I read her bio, and she's got every credential on there at every level. And I'm like, how did I miss this girl? Like, she just got past me or whatever. But
I don't know if she's been competing here of late, so that would be
no. But her, like, if you read her, like, she's played in all the big tournaments.
Yeah.
And her face looked like she was 16, 17. I went, oh, good for her.
Yeah.
Her first tryout. Meanwhile, she's played at massive levels and stuff like that. But to be on that team and from here. That's we don't really toot our horn a lot, but how do you not? Good honor, right?
Yeah, no, that's right. Right. And some of that, the press has picked it up. I know I read an article in the Times, and that's good that she's getting that profile.
And she's
working hard.
And I wish I would have.
But I think it's important too that the athletes aren't the ones really striving for that. It's guys like you and me that want to see them lit up like that, and in the newspapers and on TV.
It's as great as that is to play for the Canadian national women's team. I get a bigger kick out of the Team BC kind of stuff. Like I said, I like that level. Like, when you're playing at that elite level, you're almost supposed to win, I guess, right?
Well, I mean, Quebec and Ontario always have something to say that against BC, right? So
no, I don't mean like when the Canadian national team.
Yes,
you're we as Canadians, we're like, okay, that's hockey. You're supposed to win. But when a Team BC goes up against a Team Ontario, and and we're successful, it just seems to add to it, right? It's just like it's just like, oh yeah, stick it to them.
Yeah, I think a medal is the validation that the development process is at work, and as I said, for a British Columbia woman to be on the national team is a big feather in the cap, because they haven't come out in droves for whatever reason. BC hockey has sort of lagged behind the Albertas and the Ontarios in getting kids or getting young women onto the national program.
Registration.
That could be, yeah.
It really is something. But given the fact that the climate that we have, do you see a decline in the national teams leaving the West?
No, not that I'm aware. I haven't been day to day with that for 3 years now, but. No, I mean, we still have, triathlon is still here, middle distance running is still here.
Rugby Canada.
Swimming
Canada, they gone now?
That I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think they're at Commonwealth anymore.
Yeah, so, there's definitely, I don't think...
Rowing, I don't think is here anymore.
Well, rowing is doing some change. they're getting out of Elk Lake and going to Duncan, and I'm not sure where they are in that process. And that
I don't know either. Yeah. What about sports today? Like as far as coaching, training, I have my own take on it, and it's a bit outspoken, Kelly. If I'm honest, I think kids should play multi-sports.
100%.
I think kids should never just play that one sport, be on the ice or the field or this 12, 14 hours. I just don't think I don't think it helps for development. But what I really want to know from you is, because you've been on both sides, what's the difference between winning and developing?
Oh, that's a very good question. I have to sort of get my head around that a little bit. I think
there is a difference.
I think 100. Yeah, and I think winning is obviously you've got something in your hand that says you won. You've got a ribbon, you've got a medal, you've got a trophy. So we won the tournament. But if I'm a developing athlete, the fact that I am here now at a provincial level tournament, whereas 2 years ago I was, just learning to do this move if I'm in a karate tournament, do this, or this jump if I'm a figure skater. That's development. And I think, if you can show progress in your own self, and the coach obviously is doing that to help you along the way, and the coach, they themselves are developing because they're learning new things to teach you, the young athlete. And then you're getting that encouragement, the appropriate encouragement from your parents. Not, if you don't win, you can't come home tonight. That stuff kills kids.
You have to trust the process.
Exactly.
And the process is what I've noticed in the last, 5-6 years maybe, Kelly, is that my kid's not doing good in ball here. I'm going to send her over to the mainland or in hockey, and I'm going to go to Burnaby 8 Rinks or something because they have a better program or this or that. Is it a better they're winning right now? And
well, again, I think it's a case of who's playing the sport.
Is the other one.
Is the parent playing the sport, or is the child playing the sport?
And I have another follow-up question that, Kelly, just based on that to come in behind you. What athletes are we getting today? Are we getting the richest parents' athletes?
Well,
are we getting the best athletes that we possibly can?
Well, I think there's two pieces to that. I think the opportunity in team sport to excel without going to an elite academy is there, but not in the numbers that, if you're an individual athlete, so you can have an individual coach. So a tennis player may, get different coaching than a softball player, because softball teams generally are coached by community coaches who have a passion for the sport, who may or may not still have kids in the sport, but they're doing it because they love the game. Whereas tennis coaches are professional. Figure skating coaches are professional. Gymnastics coaches, generally speaking, are professional. So you can say that the pockets are deeper on those parents than maybe on the softball. But there's still, my daughter played softball and played volleyball and all those things. We had parents who struggled. We had parents who did very well. But that's to say their kids stayed in the middle, and they accepted the coaching they got. Some went on to university and played at that level. Others just have a love of the sport for life, and that's the important piece as far as I'm concerned.
100%. And to me, it starts and stops with coaching. When I was speaking with people that are playing and sitting on boards of directors and Rugby Canada and stuff like that, and I've asked them, what is grassroots? I don't even what's grassroots mean. To me, grassroots is coaching. That's it. I think parents make mistakes trying to either outcoach the coach, not trust the coach, not giving into the process. I mean, you have to have parents and volunteers coaching at a young age. Do I think that parents should coach their children at a later stage? No, I do not. No, absolutely not. But do I think they need to go to academies and all that to get it? No, I do not. Yeah. And I'll tell you why, quite simply, is, if you look at baseball, you love baseball. How many baseball pitchers and players are coming from, poor countries that don't have what we have, like the weight rooms, and they don't even have a glove or a proper bat, and meanwhile they're throwing 98. Like they don't have internet. They don't have somebody sending their things into scouts. That's right. And they keep coming through every year, right? They don't have the opportunities Billy and Sally have. Yeah. So you're telling me what? Like, come on. I don't buy it. Yeah. I believe if you're good enough, they will find you. That's it. And it has to be, the kid has to want to do it.
Well, 100%.
And it has to be for all the proper reasons, I believe. Like, I've said this on probably every podcast I've ever done, and I'd love your opinion on this. How many kids actively today, not just British Columbia, anywhere in all of Canada, are playing sports that they don't even want to play?
Well, I'm sure there's some.
I think there's some.
And, I think back to, my kids are in their early 20s now, and, my son playing soccer, and the rain was sideways, it was muddy, he took a ball in the face. Soccer was not his favorite sport.
I get it.
And so, moved on to some other things, right? Our daughter, same deal. Loved playing soccer, but it was interesting when it got to a certain level where a little more chippy, a little more of this. She was there for the social aspect of the game.
That is the key.
Soccer was a decent soccer player.
Sure.
Later on, got a concussion. I'm good with soccer now, Dad. But she was 16 or 17.
Right.
So packed soccer in. High school volleyball, loved volleyball,
Yep.
and still plays volleyball.
Yeah.
So, she's, it just shows you how the kids go. But back, you raised something about coaching, and I was guilty of going and finding a coach for our kids when they were playing. Our daughter principally, because Spence had kind of packed sport in by the time he was 15. But two things. I coached him in t-ball when he was 5 and 6 years old with a buddy.
Yeah.
I knew what my skills were.
Yeah.
As far as 5 and 6 year olds.
That's right.
I said to the parents that I'm not your babysitter. You will be here. And at the end of the season, it was boys and girls.
Yeah.
And a parent came to me and said, Kelly, thank you, because our daughter loved going to the park.
100%.
So that, as far as I was concerned. But then as they got older, guess what? I'm not a skilled coach. So when our daughter wanted to play soccer, we found the soccer coach. When she wanted to play basketball, we found the basketball coach, and played in those leagues. I mean, nightly basketball is one of the best things that Victoria's ever seen.
Huge,
as far as I'm concerned.
100%.
And Lindsay played in that for years and years, and we loved it socially for my wife and I, but also just going and watching and enjoying the sport and watching those girls excel. Many of them stuck together, played high school basketball, won the Islands, Claremont one year, and all the rest of it. But
just fun though.
But they had a riot.
Yes.
And kids that don't want to, some kids back away, and unhappily a lot of girls, and there's whatever statistics are out there, and unhappily they're too high. Girls get to a certain age and they pull back from sport because it's not fun anymore. It becomes too competitive for them, or there's some body image issues, or any number of those things that they simply don't want to do that. And I think that's one of the things that needs to be corrected, because I used to say that when kids come into the BC Games, they may not go to the Olympics, but if in the BC Games, if they've found a love for their sport that they carry on for their life, whether they stay as a competitor or whether they coach or become an official, then I think we've done our job to the best of our ability, because we've got lifetime advocates, lifetime healthy individuals, and that's important.
And it's a good point that you brought up, because I'm noticing a huge issue right now, not a very good one, where you see the difference between male and female, and it seems that females today having trust issues with male coaches because of some male coaches have just screwed that up.
Yes, yeah,
and it's an issue.
Yeah, but I think there's
and there has to be this. we have hockey academies, this academy, that academy. We don't have coaching academies, do we? Well, I don't know one.
Well, I mean, going back in my life, and I'll drop a name to you. So my roommate was Bob Nicholson.
Yeah.
So Bob Nicholson was the technical director for BC Amateur Hockey at the time.
Hockey
and
Canada.
I used to go, and then he went to Hockey Canada.
Yeah.
Now he's with the Oilers. So I used to go with Bob in the summer when he had his level 4 coaching clinics that he would put on around the province. I remember being in Cowichan. I remember being in Kimberley. Guys like
we had it in Ontario.
Dave King, Claire Drake.
Yeah.
So those coaching certification programs are there, and Via Sport now has the coaching. And even in something like Canada Games, you have to have a certification, a certain level.
You have to have a certification here as well. I get that. You're not allowed in the dressing rooms. You're not. I mean, they're putting up all these barriers where adults can't be in the dressing rooms. Where that's a Band-Aid on a fix.
Well,
to me,
there's lots and lots of work that's been done about safety in sport, and
I'm all for that.
A coach can't be in a room with an athlete by him or herself. There's got to be.
I don't even think you're allowed in.
It's a plus one rule. So if you want to have a one-on-one with your athlete, then somebody else is sitting right next to you while you're doing that one-on-one.
Kelly, I honestly believe
those kinds of things are in place.
I think from the hockey coaches that I know that coach different academies here, while the kids are undressing and dressing, you're not allowed in that room.
Yeah. So
it's not allowed.
Yeah.
But I mean, what does that say about society when one of the passage of rights is doing up your kids' skates or that kind of thing. I don't want to sound like an old man, but I am an old man. But we didn't have money growing up.
No.
That's I think why I'm so passionate about amateur sports is. There are several reasons I'm not going to get into here, but one of them being that you just know when your friends on your street have more money than you at a very early age. Yeah. You know what I mean? And having them get you used skates or use this, and then that your buddy's dad doing up your skates and stuff. And I lost my father when I was young. It's me and 1 million other kids, but it was to take that kind of away. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's good for the game. I think it's about protecting our youth, and I'm all for that.
There's nothing to say that
I'm all for that. But when you see the guy in what's his face, being abused by the trainer and Chicago Blackhawks, okay, if you can't fix that by now,
yeah, but
something's wrong.
We've got rules that you can't speed down the highway.
Yeah,
and we know people speed down the highway. Right.
Yeah.
We've got rules that say, you can't steal from a grocery store, but we have people steal from grocery stores. So the rules are there.
Right.
Right. And we have to have rules, laws, however you want to call them. And we hope to God that people live by those. And we put, systems in place to protect the youth, whether it's, as I said, the +1 rule where, you can't be in there, or, women coaching girls is, to have that familiarity, but also to encourage more women to coach. So, I mean, those kinds of things are in place. It's just whether people, there's always going to be somebody who the rules aren't for them, and I'm going to do whatever the hell I want.
What would you say to people who would say that sports is soft now? Participation medals, ribbons. What would you say to people who say that?
There's nothing wrong with competition. Again, I'll go back to my kids' games. We didn't keep score in the first several years of Night League basketball. And there wasn't, because the kids were developing, pure and simple. They were learning how to do a layup. They were learning how to dribble. They were learning how to do all the pieces of the puzzle that are basketball. But you know what? They knew what the score was. They paid attention.
Oh, guaranteed they do.
But did they care?
Yeah.
I remember.
That's why I golf today, Kelly, because I don't keep score. I don't take a scorecard, but I know that I got an 8.
No, that's because you can't count that high.
Well, that too. That's why I wear sandals.
That's it. But, again, I remember being in a soccer game. It was a tournament, and we were playing out in Souk, and we lost on PKs.
Yep.
Right?
Did you miss one?
Coach was chapped. No, this was my daughter's team.
Oh, okay.
I never played soccer.
All right.
And And the coach was chapped. I mean, disappointed more than anything. Girls played hard. It was about 10 seconds after that, the girls were giggling and laughing and asking if they could go to Dairy Queen.
Sure, absolutely, 100%.
Right? So
that was it. Like, you go to hockey practice, you get Tim Hortons, you get this, and then, McDonald's after.
But are we soft? And I would argue in some cases we are.
I think we are.
But, I mean, there's also that, you use the word ribbon. I mean, I remember, my kids getting ribbons, but it's also that encouragement, right? It's that, the little, you can have a carrot or you can have a stick. And the ribbon is that carrot. We want to encourage you. And my son was never so proud as to come home with a ribbon. He still got a bunch of ribbons.
I liked it, but it was like first, second, and third. It wasn't sixth place or ninth.
Yeah, these ones
right?
This was a cross-country meet.
Right, of course.
Right, where, they handed out ribbons like...
But if you look at... Yeah, exactly. If they're like TikTok. If you look, Kelly, at even the Olympics, so, like, if they don't win gold, they don't want silver.
Well, there's... Yeah.
They do not want... But if they're in fourth... They want bronze.
Oh, 100%.
But silver?
Yeah.
Stick it. I don't want silver.
I've got a good friend who's a Paralympian, and when she got a silver medal.
Not happy.
Yeah. And she referred to it as she got bronze in an event, and she referred to it, I got a brown medal, right?
But isn't that something, though?
She can say that.
Sure.
She's the one with her coach who was so heavily invested, where she was busting her hump day after day after day to train. And then she didn't get what she thought she was going to get, whether she had a down day or whether their competitor was, the medalist was that much better than she was on that day. I mean, any number of factors can, the good teams don't always win on game day.
Any given Sunday.
Yeah.
When you were doing kids sport, Victoria and BC Games, how political did that get? Just local, like from just say the South Island when you're doing kids sport or whatever. But how political?
Well, kids sport not
at all.
No, I mean at that point, kids sport was in Victoria and provincially was pretty much 100% funded through contributions from folks like you and I, and businesses and events that would take place, golf tournaments, that kind of thing.
Right.
It wasn't until later on, and it was about at least for me, around our year 10, that government kind of woke up to the notion that kids sport existed and wanted to be part of the party, and so would give money to kids sport to give,
provincially.
Yes, to give the money out. So kids sport became the conduit. So, I remember getting a phone call from an MLA who I knew and said, a constituent called me because, her kid wasn't funded in whatever city. I won't say the city. And I said, well, here's the reasons why. And he said, okay, that's fine. I'm good with that. But, it was,
But you never had the calls like that before.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
But
so
because government had invested in it, this parent felt they could, yeah. But the BC Games, I mean, it was political in that the municipalities would stand behind us and write letters to say, we really want you. I mean, that was part of coming to, Victoria. Mayor and council had to write a letter to say, we support
and
this.
Hugh was big on that, right? Was he not?
Well, Hugh, that predates Hugh.
Okay,
so,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but, and then other, cities and then, MLAs would stand up and say, we want the games to.
Yeah.
And it was important for me, for the MLAs to know about what we were. I made sure that every MLA got an invitation to come to a games. Mm-hmm. They spoke at an opening ceremony. They gave medals away. The only time it really got political was when you were in an NDP riding or an NDP government, and it happened to be an MLA that was a Liberal. So
really?
Yeah, so that the NDP would parachute in, even though they didn't represent the riding, but they were the minister responsible. So that was sort of the deal, right?
Yeah.
But there were other ways for the local MLA to get involved.
Right. Okay.
It just didn't speak, and it was once you learn the dance,
it really is. That's what it is, right?
And everybody understood.
Once you figure it out,
because they were, because one time they're on that side of the fence, and the next time they're on the other side.
Yeah.
So they knew they played the game too.
How do you think Stu Young's doing out in Langford for as far as sports goes? Is like,
well, I mean,
you got to tip your hat to him.
Well, 100%. I mean, he's investing heavily in infrastructure, certainly, but I think he could take a lesson from Kamloops, and I couldn't tell you when they did this, but Kamloops many years ago had a referendum to redevelop, and I don't know if you've been to Kamloops lately, but MacArthur Island is a sea of soccer fields and softball and slow pitch
City.
They've got slow pitch cities up the highway toward Barrier, but that's a gorgeous facility.
TRU.
Thompson Rivers University.
That's a beautiful facility.
They got a gorgeous gym. They got the track.
Larry Reed.
They've got all of that stuff, right? Gary Reed's a BC Games alum.
Yeah.
So they've got all of that. My point is they didn't just build stuff; they actually programmed the hell out of it. So
what do you mean? Explain that.
They started leagues.
Oh, right. Yes.
They
Okay.
created
Yeah.
opportunities to, because there's no sense building it if it just sits dormant.
That's
right?
true.
It's like drive by Royal Athletic
Park. Like the Velodrome?
or Royal Athletic Park.
Yeah.
Drive by there, right? If it wasn't for the Harbor Cats, that place would be a ghost town.
Yeah.
Right? Save for the geese.
Yeah.
Maybe a Sunday market or two.
Yeah.
So, God love the Harbor Cats for filling that place up in the summertime. But
the Highlanders and all that.
Kamloops, they don't. They're out here.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
So Kamloops programmed it. So they started leagues and they started this and they had coaching and they started officials programs, all of that stuff. So people would use the facility. And in a facility, or a community like Kamloops, where you think that, a lot of those fields aren't getting used because there's snow on the ground, we don't have that. We don't have that issue here. Maybe 3 weeks we won't play. But I think Stu would go a long way. I mean, I talked to him many years ago, long time ago now, about hosting a BC Games out here.
Oh.
And I said it for the reasons of, he wants to have all these events, but he doesn't have the volunteers that he needs in a trained capacity. Right? Remember how we had Commonwealth Games and we could take on the world because we had whatever number of trained volunteers. Well, I think Langford and Colwood, West Shore needs that, where they have a large-scale event like a BC Games, and they could then recruit and train a bunch of volunteers that then can go and be that much better when they support, the women's rugby.
Why would it just have to be the West Shore? Why couldn't you have an influx of Victoria people they're used to it, to volunteer,
all of that,
yeah,
right? But I mean,
you
want a champion. Langford would be the champion to drive that, just as the mayor in Penticton would, or the mayor.
Oh, right, yeah. Fair dues.
Because we're 13 jurisdictions here, God love us.
Do you think that helps or hinders?
No, it hinders. Of course
it does. It's unreal.
So you need that champion. So Stu, to use this example, Stu would be that champion. The games would come to the West Shore. No jurisdiction can alone host the games.
No,
because there's no track out here. They'd have to go to Victoria,
right?
To UVic,
right?
The pool, I don't know well enough about Wantafuka's pool, whether it would be competition ready or not, or if they'd have to go to Commonwealth. But the point being is, even in a city like Surrey, we still had to go outside of the jurisdiction to get our facilities.
But isn't that great for the entire South Island economy? The hotels, because you're in the swimming competition. I mean, Saanich and Victoria hoteliers get to have that benefit, and I mean that's. The Olympics just aren't like one little, you're busing out to here to go to this mountain, and you know what I mean. So,
and that's, you mentioned the Olympics. I mean, the notion that they want to have this 2030, they want to host again, having a provincial games.
Just sucks the money right out, doesn't it? Though.
No, well, I mean, you're using existing facilities. If you use that model, you're not doing a Vancouver-centric model anymore. You're curling in Victoria, you're skiing in Kelowna, you're whatever. You're moving around.
It's a ton of money.
It's a lot of money, but it would be less money though, right?
Yeah. Every year, or when the Olympics go around, I get so frustrated by just how businessy it is. You know what I mean? It just takes the sheen off it for me, and then you watch our athletes and I get sucked right back into it again. I can't even take my eyes off it. Like, I'm just like, I don't want to like it just because it's so commercial and so this and so that, and you can almost smell the corruption. And then you just watch our athletes and I'm like, holy shit. I mean, and that patriotism is I don't get a lot of patriotism. I think Canadians as a rule were kind of, a bit like this, but going for gold in hockey and stuff like that, and
that game in Vancouver
Oh.
on the 28th of February.
I was there.
Was my wife's birthday, and so Kim phoned Bob and said, "Thanks for the gold medal for my birthday. I really appreciate it," because Bob was still at Hockey Canada then, right?
Do you want to know something about that though? And I'll tell you. I was there with my girlfriend at the time, and it wasn't that long after the riots.
Oh yeah.
And we couldn't get into the pubs, or I couldn't get a ticket to the game and stuff. But it was an eerie feeling on the streets.
Is that right?
Oh, it was horrendous. Like you could taste it, and there was nobody on the street.
Oh yeah.
It was everyone was in.
Everybody was on a TV set.
And I'm thinking to myself, I said to Andrea at the time, I went, God, I hope Canada scores.
Yeah.
Because if they don't, it's going to take one American flag before this. You just had that feeling, you just street sense. It was
But
like,
see, look what sport does. Look what it did. It galvanized us. It brought us together. It got us.
because Sydney scored.
It gave us cause. Never mind the outcome.
Yeah.
Right? The outcome was a bonus. I mean, you asked about, do medals matter? Medals matter.
100%. Yeah.
We turned the TV on at the 20-minute time on the first period, and it was 0-0, and we stayed there until the game was over. And it galvanized us, and it gave us cause to celebrate, and it gave us cause to sing. I mean, we've kind of lost that a little bit. Adam Creek.
We've definitely lost it. I'll tell you this, Kelly. In my opinion, we've lost it in amateur sports. I don't think. I like that we're sending basically amateurs over in the hockey to fill that up. I really do. Like, to me, when I watch, I'm a hockey guy, as you know, and to me, Spangler Cup is probably one of the best events. The Allen Cup, to me, it goes NHL Stanley Cup, Allen Cup for me. Mm-hmm. I just think I grew up to that. I grew up watching the senior men going for the Allen Cup and stuff like that. And I just think it just means more. I don't know. Do you find yourself more attracted to amateur sports?
100%. I haven't watched hockey since I was 20 years old.
Right. But baseball. Would you rather go to a Jays game, Seattle game, or would you rather?
I've been to 100 years ago I went to an Expos game. And I've been to Seattle. Seattle was just because it was a roadie down to Seattle.
Yeah.
It didn't matter who was on the field. I have season tickets to the Harbor Cats.
Yeah,
I can walk to the park. I can hear.
Yeah.
I can almost smell hot dogs from my house.
Yeah.
And so no, I like watching baseball. It gives me cause to think because I grew up playing it. I enjoyed that game. I mean, and so that's about it for me for amateur sport. I mean, I'll go and watch a friend's daughter or son play university or somewhere just because I know somebody on the floor.
Yeah.
I'll go to a Vikes game periodically just for shits and giggles.
Yeah.
But I don't. The stuff I watch mostly now is probably the NFL. So this past weekend was money.
Who are you taking for the Super Bowl?
I just hope Derrick Henry's really healthy, and I hope he can play well. And
I'm going Buffalo.
Are you? Yeah, I like them too.
I think they're tough.
Brady, I think he's going to be up against it. I mean,
he's unbelievable.
The Rams game last night was good. I was happy to see Kyler Murray go down.
I wasn't expecting that.
I just don't think he's as good as everybody says he is.
Yeah.
And that showed last night. I mean, trying to get out of the end zone and just throw the grenade up. So
yeah. What about that play with Dallas there? What were they thinking?
Yeah,
What do you? Yeah. I think I'll run.
Happy to.
Okay. And then with 6 seconds left, I think I'll block the ref from picking up the ball.
Yeah.
Hello. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. I want to talk about. I mentioned Keith Wells' name earlier.
Yeah.
We're doing. We had to postpone it. We're having another meeting tonight, but we're postponing this event called the Greater Victoria Sports Awards.
Oh.
And it was scheduled for February at the Crystal Garden downtown. But going back for many, many years, the event was a huge event in Victoria. Times Colonist covered it from head to tail, and TV stations covered it, and they had guest speakers, and it goes back to Gordie Hunter's day and Ken Dobson's day.
Yeah.
And it ended in 2005, and when the volunteers simply, burned out.
Okay.
And volunteers like Pat Hall and John and Marilyn Bate and
and others, and they did a terrific job. So Keith wants to resurrect us, so he's asked me to chair this.
Really?
So effectively, it's an opportunity for us as a community to celebrate sport and to honor excellence. So we're going to have awards for Indigenous male-female high school athletes of the year, team of the year, organization of the year, volunteer. And when I say year, obviously we haven't really had that much competition.
No, but
so
still.
we're kind of reaching, we're going to have about a 6-year window there where,
Wow.
if you were a stud in high school 5
yeah,
years ago,
yeah.
you're eligible versus the kid that just walked
Okay.
out of class yesterday. So and so the plan is to sell tickets and do all the rest. So what we're going to be talking about tonight is really pushing, and I'd really appreciate the Raw Sportcast and whoever else.
Let me, if I could help it anyway.
Well, it's about getting nominations in.
Yeah,
'cause
sure.
that's always a tough one, right? You think your kid's good, but is he really? But we can't judge somebody if we don't have.
Well, it's
we
been
don't
my
have that application, right?
Kelly. It's been my Achilles heel for 13 years with
Yeah.
ISN
Yeah.
is getting parents that think.
So we want those applications from Team of the
Okay.
Year and Senior Athlete, and it's about the 65-year-old athlete as much as it is about the 13-year-old athlete.
Okay.
And everybody in between. So it's, as I say, it's an opportunity in February next year.
Okay.
To celebrate sport and honor those kids.
So what is the requirements then to be eligible for nomination?
Well, basically, you would have had to achieve some level of success in your sport, and then
Is it open to disability?
yes, yep,
Okay.
yep. And so, with advice from the Canadian Paralympic Committee and a good friend, as I said, who is a Paralympian, we're not having a separate category. So
You should, no, and I don't think it should be. Yeah, good for you.
yeah, so it's
Well, keep me informed about that.
yeah, 100%. I will.
And
yeah.
if anything that I can do, Raw or ISN,
Yeah. Well, I'll
you know,
flip you the release when we send it out tonight. And
100% do that, and then you got to come back on, and maybe Keith, and we can talk about it and go from there. And
so it's
when is
as
this?
you say-
When are you planning on doing this?
It was going to be the end of February this year.
Yeah.
But as I say, the restrictions that we have on us are such that, because we don't want to do a rubber chicken sit down dinner.
Yeah.
We want to do a stand up, because our thought was, when we first started this back in the spring, was that people are itching to see each other. So if I'm going to park myself at a table, I can't get over there and see you,
that's
because I haven't
true.
seen you forever, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we want to do something that is more mix and mingle, and
Okay.
for sake of argument, a cocktail reception that obviously kids can come and
Awesome. And what are you looking at price point for tickets and stuff?
right now we're at $60, and that's just because we've got some numbers that we just can't beat down, but we're still working on that. So $60 is the number right now. I'd like to get it back down to 50, but
Awesome.
we'll see. And then we've got Kids Sport as our charity of choice, so they're going to be there.
Wicked.
And,
so
so
win-win.
it ties a bunch of bows together and all the rest of it. So yeah.
Kelly, an absolute pleasure having you on today.
I appreciate it.
And we'll definitely have to keep chatting after
There's
the
probably
cameras.
more stuff we haven't covered yet.
Well, there always is.
Yeah.
But keeping people's, this is an hour now, and so
All right.
It doesn't take long, does
No
it?
kidding. No
Not
kidding. Jeez.
bad for a dummy who wings it, huh?
Thanks, Scotty. Appreciate it.
Guys, this is Scott Herrick from Raw Podcast. Pleasure having Kelly Mann. Just another one of those guests that you could certainly talk to for another hour or two, and I probably will. So check it out. I love the fact of what he does with kids sports, still involved, passionate about family. We're on to the next one. Kelly, thanks again.
No problem.